The Evercade Versus is a retro games console from the talented team behind the original Evercade, known as Blaze Entertainment. Instead of niching to handhelds, they have now moved into the world of home consoles, allowing the retro gaming scene to be even more inclusive in a world when modern games are coming out left, right and centre. The Evercade Versus starts at $89.99 and will officially release towards the start of December, just in time for Christmas. But lucky for us, the Evercade team have nicely sent over an early review unit to test and, more importantly, show the Retro Dodo viewers. So, without further ado, let's jump into the review. First off, I have to shine light on the fact that the team have done an incredible job on the retail packaging. It's exciting, filled with colours, and has a very pleasant unboxing experience, which is good if you're giving this to a kid or someone new to the retro scene. It comes layered, so every time you pull something out, there's something else waiting to surprise you underneath. I have the premium pack, which also includes 2 game cartridges, one being the Data East Arcade 1 collection and the other being the Technos Arcade 1 collection, both featuring a handful of games. Also in the box you'll find the console itself, 2 controllers and a micro USB to USB connector for power. Unfortunately, you won't get a HDMI cable, so you have to buy one yourself or use one lying around the house. So let's take a look at the console itself. Upon first holding this thing, I did notice how light it was, and it uses similar plastic to the original Evercade, which, as you know from our review, I didn't really like it as it feels quite flimsy and cheap. But that said, it's probably why Blaze Entertainment can price the product so competitively. If they were to use high quality plastic throughout their whole product, it's likely that we'd see a hefty price bump. The design of the console itself is very sleek. It's a slim device with a grille on top for aesthetic purposes, a chunky on-off button which feels absolutely incredible when pressed, and towards the front you'll find the large dual cartridge slot that hides under a flap to keep the Evercade Versus looking modern and streamlined. When opened, you will see the 2 cartridge slots which slide into a red base. Like the previous Evercade, this cartridge slot has no feedback or clicky noise when you insert a game, which in all honesty is a little disappointing. Instead of it slotting in like the retro cartridges of the past in the Game Boy and the Game Gear, these seem to scrape in with no noise and then this soft, dull, silent slide when it finally hits the cartridge itself. And I wish this made some kind of nostalgic noise or some kind of feedback like the good old days. But anyway, putting that aside, the dual cartridge slot is perfect for you to load 2 games, and this saves you time, and it will also show all of your games within the cartridges in the library, even if you have just 1 cartridge inserted. When you turn it on, you will notice that the console has a light bar that goes across the face of the device. This lights up multicolored when loading up and then sits at a strong branded red that looks awesome when playing at night. This adds a really nice modern touch to the device and gives it some character too. Below that is your 4 USB controller ports. This obviously attaches your Evercade Versus controllers, and it also allows you to connect other USB controllers too. But be warned, you may have some mapping issues on other USB controllers. This could eventually be patched out, but as of now there's still some minor issues. Then finally on the back you have your reset button, HDMI out, and your micro USB port for charging. Yes, not USB-C unfortunately, but hey, we can't win them all. Overall, the console itself looks really trendy. The white gives it that modern clean look, and with the addition of the branding and logos and awesome clunky on-off switch, it sits nicely in any modern or retro games room. Now moving over to the controllers, they have a really long 2-meter red USB cable that's enough to reach your couch if playing in a large living room, and it has this boxy retro aesthetic to it, and they've added light grey detailing to the controller to again give it that nostalgic look. And in all honesty, it does remind me of the controller itself, the Evercade handheld itself, so they may have took some design aspects from that. All of the buttons are placed nicely on the face of the controller, and for someone who has large hands, everything just fits. The D-pad is very chunky, but it's actually one of my favorite features of the Evercade Versus because The thickness itself allows it to be incredibly precise, even if it means there's a lot of travel on my thumb. I don't know why, I just really like the flexibility of the D-pad. On top you'll find your 4 shoulder buttons, which protrude out of the back of the controller to give your hands a better grip. These shoulder buttons are okay, they have very little feedback and feel a little stale, but it's nice that they made the back ones a bit larger to increase comfortability. Now that I think of it, I probably would have liked to see them be flared or slightly angled at the back. There's no real point in having really small shoulder buttons. Bigger is better in my opinion, but that's just a personal taste. The modern console design, teamed with an awesome looking controller, allows the Evercade Versus to be a very attractive console when placed next to many others that has been released over the last few years. And due to its small size, it can fit in large gaming rooms or even on your desk tucked away like I do. Blaze have done a really good job. There's definitely places that need some more love when it comes to design, but again, for £89, it's hard to be strict with this console. When you boot up the console and manage to stop looking at the beautiful multicolored lights on the front, you will be greeted with the dashboard. And if you have your 2 cartridges inserted, you'll see your library of games sitting there waiting to be played with. The first thing I did was jump into the settings, and I was immediately impressed with the amount of customization you can do to your menus and games. For example, when you go into the settings, you can change aspect ratio, you can add scan lines to your games, and even customize the bezels around your screen too. The Evercade Versus does have Wi-Fi, which is exclusively used to update your console on the go, but unfortunately won't allow you to play online with friends yet. When you look at the menu system, it's easy to use, and the user interface itself kind of leads you into your library, allowing you to focus on what games you have in your collection and what you want to play next. When you press on a game, it will load up a menu that offers information about the game itself. For example, when it was made, who by, a look at the box art, and information on how to play the game alongside the controls. This simple aesthetic and simple layout makes it easier for newcomers to understand too. So if you are buying this for someone who has no experience with retro games, they'll have a blast sifting through the library and learning about the games before they jump into them. And that itself is what I really love about these Evercade products. It's that they make retro gaming simple and fun, allowing all ages to enjoy them, from young children who have never touched a game in their life to us old folk who have been playing these games for many, many years. The gaming experience itself, you know what, it's pretty flawless, and for someone who has played around with a lot of emulators in my time, this feels really natural, as if I've gone back 20 or 30 years and somehow managed to have a giant HD TV to play on. The Evercade Versus outputs it into native 1080p resolutions, and the quad-core 1.5 GHz processor inside allows this emulation to be as close to the real thing as possible. Throughout our review process, I didn't experience one crash at all, and I've played with it for many days. I didn't even notice any issues with audio or frame rate drops either, which is, when you think of it, quite impressive actually. I know the Evercade's giant 260 game library doesn't require huge processing power, but it's still impressive to know that it's a console to rely on, and knowing from the second you turn it on that you're going to have no problems at all with gameplay quality is in itself a really cool feature of the product. If you press the menu option in game, it will open up the menu. This lets you save, load, change controls, and change up the display settings mid-game too. The save load options are a great addition, just like on the Evercade handheld. This basically allows you to save the game from the exact frame that you left off, and as we all know, in previous retro games like back in the day, you couldn't do that. So having the ability to load from an exact frame that you left off opens it up to children who want as many lives and as many go-throughs as possible, which I think is a really cool addition. Even for those that haven't played retro games and find it a little bit hard, they can obviously take as much lives or as much saves as they need to process the game. Overall, the Evercade Versus is a great way to play your retro games in cartridge format, and that alone brings the possibility of trading cartridges with your friends, having a more physical approach in such a fast-paced digital world, and it even allows you to read the bloody manuals. I haven't seen a game with proper reading manuals in years. I really like the Evercade Versus. It's doing great things for the retro community, and because of the price tag, I could be a bit more lenient with the build quality of the product too, even if it's not perfect in places. Evercade has a lot more games coming out in the near future, and you can, if you have the handheld, to use cartridges on both consoles, which is great for those of you that are coming from the Evercade handheld. The only thing to consider though is that Evercade may never get the official licenses for larger retro games like Nintendo and Sega from the past, so even though there's a large selection to have now, it may not have the games you want to play on, but I can assure you you'll find something that you'll love within their library. The Evercade Versus is an affordable, legitimate way to play and get back into the retro gaming scene, and because they've made it so easy and fluid to use, it opens itself up to all ages for an affordable price, and that I can get behind. So there you have it, a look at the Evercade Versus. If you are interested, there are links below on Amazon to snag one, and it will arrive just in time for Christmas as well. But this is a great product to give as a gift or to treat yourself to this Crimbo. So there's links below, and if you enjoyed this type of content, hit that subscribe button, and I hope to see you in the next video. Peace.